Hello, and welcome back to Rants and Raves, a series that I haven't touched for several years now, I think. But I have these thoughts, and I should probably share them more than I do, because, I don't know, some people like these videos, apparently. I'm going to try and keep this one shorter than the last one from several years ago, because that one was over 30 minutes long, I believe. And these are supposed to be short and sweet and off the cuff. And as I noted in my recent video about the sort of state of the channel thing, I want to do these more, and I want them to be like casual and just sort of unscripted. And I've been writing too much down for them, so let me get them out before I try and over-engineer them. And so what I want to talk about today is what I'm going to say. I'm going to say good products, bad materials, or bad design. And we'll get really into that, I promise. Oh, no, now I'm making it sound like it's a long video. I don't know, you know how long this is before I do. Okay, I have a problem, which is I keep buying products and then they fail. And they fail in very specifically irritating ways. Now, I'm sure everybody has had situations like this with one product or another, but it's come to my attention particularly with stuff around my workspace, my computer workspace, and those sorts of items, especially when it comes to electronics. Because in the electronics sales space, there seems to be a very high instance of this kind of failure. For years now, I have been using repeated iterations of the same mouse, which is the Logitech G502. Been using it for ages. It's not the perfect mouse by any means, but I keep buying it because it's pretty good, and it's pretty well priced. It doesn't do more than I need it to. It doesn't do less than I need it to, and my gripes with it are relatively minor in the grand scheme of things. But the thing that keeps failing over and over and over again, and has finally driven me away from my comfort mouse, is the materials they chose to put on the back of this thing. Now, this is a very popular mouse, so some of you may have this same mouse, and some of you may have had this issue, and some of you may not have. But the whole palm, the part of the mouse that touches your thumb and your sort of pinky and ring finger, and a little bit around that, a little bit more than that, a little bit that's on like sort of the palm, is made of this rubberized plastic. And I say rubberized plastic because rubber has much more durability, and people have gotten to starting to just say rubber when it's not rubber, which gives rubber a bad name because rubber is a very particular material and it's very good material. This is not rubber, and it almost never is, especially when it comes to electronics, because rubber's kind of expensive and it's harder to get your hands on than just synthesizing a polymerized plastic. So there's this soft plastic on the outside of this mouse that over and over again, and I think this is my fourth one, just wears out. Now, anything that comes into contact with a human being on a regular basis is going to be difficult to maintain. I want to make that concession sort of up front, because human beings, and really all animals, are relatively caustic, inhospitable creatures that shed various things, skin, oils, hairs, whatever. Everything that we come into contact with regularly gets wear on it for one reason or another. That's normal. But this rubberized plastic in particular frustrates me because everything about the rest of this mouse is fine. And it's specifically just this plastic that starts to fall apart you start to see the first signs of it, at least in my experience, about after a year or so. And I use my equipment very heavily. I use it probably, depending on my work and those sorts of things. And if I'm using the same mouse, it changes a little bit, but many hours a day. And so it wears out. And that would be fine if the rest of the mouse wore out evenly. But it's specifically because I feel like this choice of materials And the fact that it's unfixable, that's what gets me. So really, this whole video is about waste. I should have led with that, I guess, at the beginning of the video, but it's about wasteful design, because all the things I want to talk about, and I've been thinking about this with, are things where something very minor could have been changed and the longevity of the product or the accessibility of the product would have been much longer. So this is now going to be like the third or fourth of this mouse I have to throw out, because it's got this one surface that's worn out. And it's not even one of the surfaces that you would be worried about wearing out. Yes, there are a whole bunch of different surfaces or a whole bunch of different features on any given interface device that are going to wear out, whether it's the keycaps on your keyboard, or if it's the clicks of the mouse, which the buttons on the mouse, which the buttons themselves have a certain rating, and the plastic that actually has the springiness to it that will give to your finger but not break over and over again. Those are all things that are going to break eventually too, right? But it's specifically because nothing else ever Oh, I take it back, actually. There's two problems with this mouse. I just remembered. The other thing is, for some reason, the scroll wheel, which is metal, always gets really roughed up and corroded. Or not corroded, but it's like it gets scrapes in it over years of use, and I don't know why. It's a terrible issue, and it's funny that the one metal piece on the whole mouse is one of the two things that wears out. Anyway, my point is, you've got something very cheap that you could have done one of two things to fix. You could have either molded this whole mouse as one piece of plastic, or at least molded those same pieces that are rubber as plastic instead. And then they wouldn't be a problem, because they wouldn't be subject to the same contact wear from human skin and oils and things. And that could, if you wanted to keep it for whatever reason, if you happen to be of the wrong notion that rubberized surfaces are actually more comfortable, something I don't believe in at all, then you could make them replaceable. That is a much bigger engineering problem that I'm not going to hold anybody to, because I recognize that that's not an easy thing to do. To make a device like this user serviceable is a whole other issue. So I'm not going to demand that. It would be preferable, but I'm not going to demand that. So I'm very frustrated by this waste of a mouse that is 99% working, but because of these very small things that are just there for either poor engineering reasons or possibly even cost savings reasons, which it can't be more than fractions of pennies if it's a cost savings at all to turn this rubberized instead of normal plastic. I don't get it. But this gets into more expensive things too. I have headphones. Every set of headphones I've ever had has had the ear cups wear out. That's a normal thing. It's something expected. These are, again, they're wear surfaces, or what would be considered in engineering to be a wear surface. And there are ways to make those better, to make them more durable. There are also ways to make them more user serviceable. And there is a whole culture that goes on, especially in electronics, but generally speaking, in this day and age of everything is treated as having a very limited service lifetime. But again, I've got this set of wireless headphones that have these ear cups that I've started to notice are tearing in a very specific place. These are about 2 years old. I don't wear them every day, but they've been tearing in the inside of the ear cup where it's stitched. And this could have been fixed by a whole bunch of different choices. One is making them out of a different, more durable material. Frankly, I don't think this material is actually bad, because the other part of it, the stitching is actually holding up, and it's holding together the two pieces, but it's loosening. So the other problem that you end up seeing in a bunch of other products now, once you start noticing these things, not just in electronics, but in other things in life, is stitching and manufacturing tolerances are made to be incredibly sloppy probably for minor cost savings in QC, that they say this is good enough. We don't need to put in extra effort because who cares? It saves us a penny. So I've got these ear cups that are coming apart where they are stitched because the stitching was the wrong choice of stitching for these two materials to be stitched together. And that gets into the user serviceability thing, because these are user serviceable. These are replaceable. They are replaceable ear cups, and they can be purchased directly from the manufacturer. And you know what? To my opinion, that's not good enough for a couple of reasons. One is, for the cost of one set of replacement ear cups, or sorry, let me say it the other way around. For the cost of 3 replacement sets of ear cups, I could buy a whole new headphones. Is it less money? Yes, but that is an embarrassingly high cost for a part that is it can't be more than $1 to make these ear cups. This is not a low volume. This is not boutique. These are being made by the millions, and they can't be costing more than maybe $1 to manufacture. And if you want to say, okay, but they need to make their money and they need to cover shipping and stuff like that, fine. Make them $5, but they're not $5. And God forbid you, like me, have other sets of headphones that you really like and are actually very good, but the manufacturer themselves doesn't make replacement ear cups, or used to make replacement ear cups but doesn't anymore, but third parties do now. Well, those third party ones are also going to have other problems, like questionable sourcing. Is this company any good? There isn't any individual company there's no boutique company that only makes custom ear cups to replace for older models of headphones. That's just not a good business model in the first place, so it's understandable. But then you're paying on top of the already exorbitant cost of the replacement parts that you would have gotten wholesale or from first party. You're paying for the premiums of third-party engineering, reverse engineering, stuff like that, and probably lower manufacturing rates. And on top of all that, the replacement ear cups here, I cannot buy from the same vendor that I bought the headphones themselves from. I can only buy them directly from the manufacturer, which means I have to pay their shipping rates and wait on their package handler and whoever they choose to do. And I have no way to, get them in a pinch if I really need them. I just gotta, be lucky that they don't fail at the inopportune moment. The stitching thing and these manufacturing of cheap items also goes into like my furniture, where I have this desk chair that I really, really like, and within 2 months, I want to say, of getting it, the arm pads were already wearing out. And again, it's a materials issue. It's a materials and manufacturing issue. I don't even know if these can be replaced. I think, feeling them right now, I think there are screws that can make these replaceable, but the fact that these failed within 2 months is embarrassing. And part of that is, I know these are made really cheaply. They are made out of they're the faux leather shit that is actually just plastic. Again, we've got plastic problems that are not with plastic foam underneath them that are not durable enough for anybody who leans heavily on their armrests, which I tend to. And so I have no incentive to replace these, because if they are first party, they're just going to fail at the same rate. presumably, unless there was a known defect with them, which I'm sure there wasn't. They're going to fail in 2 months again. So I'm just stuck with these ugly, torn up armrests that I can't fix. I can't do anything about. The best I could do is either attempt to manufacture my own, tearing these apart and stitching something up myself, or just trying to cover them with something else so that they're a little less unsightly or a little more comfortable. Since actually the rough edges, which is how I noticed it was failing in the first place, the rough edges have been softened out over time by me continuing to lean on them. So at least it's not poking me anymore. But it's still disappointing, and they still are not very nice to lean on. And then again, with these corner cutting measures that these manufacturers are taking, I have one that I've talked about a couple of times on the channel before in one video or another. You may have heard the story of my joystick that I have for my flight sims and stuff. And the long story short on that one being just they chose to save literal pennies, because I can replace, in theory, both the original sensor and a better replacement sensor for they're like pennies each. They chose to use a bad sensor. It's a bad sensor choice because it is liable to get clogged up with dust or just wear out because of constant use. And there are complaints all over that this expensive piece of equipment fails this way all the time because of pennies that were saved in order to make it slightly cheaper to manufacture. I'm going to concede that like some of these are ultimately always going to be about, we need our customers to come back and pay us again. There is planned obsolescence. That's no surprise to me or anyone else who's vaguely aware of the nature of capitalism or the current state of it. That I understand. But some of these are just so woefully negligent. Maybe that's what I'll call the video. Negligent design or something like that. Where it just seems like it wasn't considered. Where a joystick failing after 100 hours of use, or an armrest failing after 2 months of use, or headphone cups costing a third of the cost of the entire headphones and failing after a year, or a mouse that has these surfaces that just degrade and make the whole thing unpleasant when everything else is fine. The mouse one really irks me, especially because one of their selling points is always like you can click 50 million clicks on the buttons, but that doesn't matter because you'll never get anywhere close without wearing the other parts of it. Anyway, these are the things that bother me because they're so wasteful. Because I could throw this chair away and get one. I could throw this chair away every 2 months and get in order for it not to be worn out. I could throw away my joystick every 100 hours and get a new one so that it wouldn't be worn out. I could throw away my mouse, like I do actually, every 1 to 2 years because I have to, because it's the only way to not have it worn out. But all of these things could have been fixed if the people who are making them took reasonable engineering design principles into account. Like, when you get into real engineering, and yes, I am saying this in a truly derogatory way, whoever's engineering these products and saying this is fine are bad engineers. They either don't know what they're doing, or somebody above them is making willfully negligent choices to get these past things. Because when you get into actual industrial design for things that don't even have to be that critical, but when you get into established zones of engineering that are not the tech industry in particular, which just happens to be especially bad, all these things are taken into account. Wear surfaces, materials durability, materials choices, all of these things tend to be very carefully considered because there are ramifications if they aren't. I'm not talking about space shuttle shit, which is its own level of insanity. But even just like if you're trying to design a light fixture, something that's not crazy, you still have to do a ton of tolerance, like tolerance and durability considerations, because if you don't, somebody could get hurt. And frankly, with my chair, somebody could get hurt. If the thing fails wrong, somebody could slip out of it. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. These are considerations that are not fair to say, oh, just buy a new one anymore. Whether it's just the understanding that you could have fixed this and deliberately chose not to, or you deliberately chose this so that it would fail. Whatever it is, I'm tired of throwing good things away. Things that are mostly good and there's just a little bit of bad and they have to be tossed, or an unreasonable amount of money has to be sunk to fix them. Whatever. Anyway, that's my ramble on being tired of buying poorly engineered shit. If you've had experiences like this, and I'm almost sure you have, please leave your experiences in the comments, because we'll have a little vicarious exchange of anger at manufacturing. Thank you guys for watching. I've been the Social Solipsist. I'll see you guys next time.